Alien Ant Farm would blow up in the summer of 2001. Their cover of Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal was inescapable. What you may not know is that the song was never supposed to be released as a single. The music video cost a fortune, and not for the reason you might expect. The members of the group even came to resent the song, so much so, they stopped playing it for a short period of time. Throughout the years, Alien Ant Farm have weathered a litany of challenges, including record label mergers, near-death experiences, and lineup changes. Because you guys requested it, let's take a look at the history of Alien Ant Farm. Alien Ant Farm would form in 1996 in Riverside, California. They would be made up of vocalist Dryden Mitchell, guitarist Terry Corso, bassist Ty Zamora, and drummer Mike Cosgrove. The group's frontman Mitchell got into music because he came from a musical family, and he saw how his father, who was a multi-instrumentalist, could whip out his guitar or play the piano and instantly transform the mood of the room. His musical tastes would be semi-eclectic and included the likes of Joni Mitchell, Sade, to Edie Brickell, Bjork, Primus, Nirvana, and even Smashing Pumpkins. Even before forming Alien Ant Farm, Mitchell was already friends with his future bandmates. Mitchell's future bandmates Corso and Zamora were playing in a metal act, and they even played in a Primus cover band as well, while Cosgrove was into Latin music. But the three musicians liked Mitchell's voice because he could actually sing instead of just screaming. Mitchell, prior to forming Alien Ant Farm, was doing some folksy type stuff, playing at coffee shops around Riverside. Soon enough, though, the four musicians would form Alien Ant Farm while they were still moonlighting in their other bands. Mitchell would tell MTV in 2001, "We were just kind of cheating on our other bands to form this band. We were actually going to wear masks, not as any kind of image, but we didn't want our bands to know we were doing other projects. Finally, we said, that this is too good. Let's just fucking quit and be this band." One interview summarized Alien Ant Farm as a supergroup in the Riverside music scene. Alien Ant Farm would get their name from a daydream that their guitar player Corso had at his desk job one day. He dreamt about aliens having an ant farm where humans were the ants. He would tell an interviewer, "Wouldn't it be cool if the human species were placed on Earth and cultivated by an alien intelligence? Maybe the aliens added us to an atmosphere that was suitable for us." Another name the band toyed around with was Masters of the Universe. Alien Ant Farm would soon gain a reputation for their live shows, which Zamora described as very intense, chaotic, and freeform. Rolling Stone would even refer to Alien Ant Farm as geek metal, a label that they didn't really shun. They would be frequently labeled as nu metal, with some publications also highlighting their 70s rock influence. The band, however, didn't agree with the nu metal label, claiming that they were too pop. The band's guitarist Terry Corso would tell an interviewer, "I remember when songs had a bed of music that created a mood, and the blanket on top was the guitar line. There was a constant movement that kept your mind busy. Our stuff strikes chords and tones that haven't been heard in a long time." The quartet cut their first demo in 1996 called $100 EP, and 2 years later they put out their second demo titled Love Songs. The band played numerous gigs in and around the Inland Empire, and their gigs in LA would see them rent big buses, sell tickets to people from Riverside, and bus them to the city. They would load up 3 to 4 buses at a time with 50 people on board each vehicle, and they'd play gigs in Los Angeles. And to outsiders, it seemed like Alien Ant Farm had a big following. The band got a residency at the LA club Coconut Teaser and soon got a manager and a guy named Len Fagan. Fagan had previously showcased Weezer and the Wallflowers on the Sunset Strip. Soon enough, Alien Ant Farm built up such a buzz in LA that record labels took notice. So they got signed right away. Well, not quite. They pretty much got turned down by every major label. I should mention that everything the band did seemed tongue-in-cheek. Their first album, which was independently released on their own Chick Music record label, was called Greatest Hits. The record would win Album of the Year from the LA Independent Music Awards, but sadly, such an award didn't really carry any weight with the record labels. The quartet, wanting to break out of Southern California, soon found a kindred spirit with another band named Papa Roach, who was from the northern part of the state. Papa Roach wanted to establish themselves in Alien Ant Farm's neck of the woods, and so a close friendship was formed. Corso would tell the Independent Sun, We started hanging out and we became friends over the years, swapping out shows and swapping out mailing lists and going back and forth. Soon enough, Alien Ant Farm got invited to play shows in Northern California, places like San Francisco, San Jose, and Sacramento, where they started to develop a following. The bands also made a pact with each other that whoever got famous first would help the other one out. Papa Roach achieved success first, thanks to nabbing a major recording deal with DreamWorks Records, and they would become a household name thanks to the success of their second album, 2000's Infest. Papa Roach made good on their pact, with Corso telling The Sun. Kobe Dix got a big mouth, and when he actually got into a position where people wanted to hear what he had to say, he was very vocal about us, and it helped out a lot. Alien Ant Farm soon nabbed a record deal with Papa Roach's imprint on DreamWorks Records called New Noise in 2000. In fact, Alien Ant Farm were the first band signed to New Noise. The quartet would hook up with producer Jay Baumgartner, who worked with POD, Papa Roach, as well as Coal Chamber to name a few, for their second album titled Anthology. But unbeknownst to the band, Baumgartner had wanted to work with Alien Ant Farm long before they even signed a record deal. He would recall to an interviewer, "It was 1999 and it was the very first time I saw Papa Roach play. I was invited to this show in Riverside. Alien Ant Farm was supposed to be on the bill with Papa Roach, but it turns out they were on tour in Europe. And I guess they got delayed and couldn't make it." But ahead of Papa Roach's set, someone at the venue started playing their cover of Smooth Criminal through the loudspeakers. The song would be included on their first release under the name Slick Thief. The producer would walk up to the DJ that night and ask who the band on the loudspeakers was, and the DJ replied, Alien Ant Farm. Alien Ant Farm would record 2 songs with the producer, at least initially, and then take a month to write more tunes and rehearse. The band and producer knew that Smooth Criminal had the potential to be a massive hit, but the quartet didn't want to be pigeonholed as simply a covers band, so they released the track Movies as the first single from the record. It would peak at number 18 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. The song Movies deals with a relationship on the verge of falling apart. In fact, relationships would be a common theme throughout the band's second record, and there are also a few other themes, including God in the track Flesh and Bone, and record label BS with the song Whisper. But by the summer of 2001, things would dramatically change. It would be radio station WXRK, or K-Rock in New York City, that started playing Smooth Criminal. Soon enough, it became the station's most requested track for 4 consecutive weeks. A DJ in Dallas soon got wind of it and added the song to his station, and DreamWorks issued the track as the second single without the band even being in the loop. Smooth Criminal would be one of the biggest songs of 2001, topping the mainstream rock tracks chart and crossing over to the Hot 100, peaking at number 7. It even made K-Rock in Los Angeles' year-end list at number 4. The first single, Movies, had just cracked the top 20 when Smooth Criminal exploded, and it suddenly got yanked off the air. Bassist Ty Zamora would tell an El Paso paper about Smooth Criminal, "That's an introduction piece. We didn't even want that song to be out. We never intended for it to be a single or anything. It just blew up." Cover tunes, however, had been a long part of the band's live set, as they paid homage to the likes of Weezer, The Police, Sade, and Bad Brains. They even used to cover the South Park theme at some of their shows. Corso would recall how they decided to cover the song, revealing, "I can't remember who brought in the idea, but they were like, we gotta try the song. It sounds like it was made for guitar," and we just started messing with the riff. The band were playing a show in Riverside one night during their independent years, with them adding, "We were at a show in our hometown and we played a few bars of it, just like off, and everything went mental." The following day, the group's drummer Cosgrove went to a local record store and purchased Michael Jackson's album Bad, so the entire band could learn the song. It seemed fitting given that frontman Dryden Mitchell's first show was Michael Jackson at Dodger Stadium. It was insinuated, however, in some of the press coverage the band got in 2001 that they were mocking the King of Pop with their cover and video, but they weren't. The members openly talked about how they were huge fans of Michael Jackson. Despite the band's success, they soon got labeled as a one-hit wonder and were criticized for having success by doing a cover tune. Bands using covers to get attention for themselves was really nothing new around this time. After all, Limp Bizkit got a lot of attention for their cover of George Michael's Faith, Orgy did New Order's Blue Monday, while Marilyn Manson did the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams. Alien Ant Farm's members, however, would take exception to the idea but they recorded a cover to get recognition for themselves. Mitchell would tell the Calgary Herald, if Fred Durst would have actually sung the song, it would have been a whole lot better. Their cover was just a little cheap to me. We've been doing Smooth Criminal for years before we got signed. Next, of course, we gotta talk about the memorable music video. To show homage to the King of Pop, their video for Smooth Criminal is littered with references to Jackson, including the chimp, which is a reference to his monkey Bubbles, the kid wearing a Michael Jackson style mask who dances like him too, the drummer is wearing one white glove, there's crotch grabs, a few references to Jackson's videos, in addition to that cool anti-gravity move that the members do as well. Believe it or not though, Alien Ant Farm's video for Smooth Criminal was one of the most expensive videos that was shot around this time, as the group's frontman revealed on Rover's Morning Glory show. The reason for it being so expensive partially had to do with Michael Jackson himself. The band would send the finished music video to the King of Pop for his approval. While Jackson loved their cover and the video, he had one issue with it. He didn't like the kid wearing a mask, and supposedly Jackson wore a mask because he had a series of botched surgeries. So Alien Ant Farm had to reassemble the cast and redo the kid dancing without the mask, only for Michael Jackson to come back and say he changed his mind about it and wanted it kept in the video. The band also had to rent a crane with cables attached to the band members to do that anti-gravity tilt. The band's singer also claimed on Rover's Morning Glory show that the sidewalk that lit up cost a lot of money as well. The video was inescapable on MTV and was a mainstay on the program TRL. Alien Ant Farm also got some extra exposure, appearing on the soundtrack and in the movie for American Pie 2, with Smooth Criminal being featured when Jim glues himself, well, to himself. As for the kid who has the awesome dance moves, his name is Bobby Edner, and he'd go on to become an actor, dancer, and musician, and he was also part of a short-lived boy band called Varsity Fan Club. Edner was a longtime fan of Jackson, emulating his moves starting at the age of 5, and he'd even perform for the King of Pop 2 years later at a party in 2003. The timing of the song taking off seemed perfect. There were actually 2 Michael Jackson 30th anniversary shows that were set to take place in New York City in September of 2001. Alien Ant Farm were supposed to appear at these shows, but then they got disinvited, then reinvited and disinvited. It's not clear what really happened though. Less than a week after Jackson's 30th anniversary shows, 9/11 would happen, and soon enough program directors from Clear Channel Communications, who was the largest owner of radio stations in America, circulated a list of songs with inappropriate or questionable lyrics in the wake of the attacks. Strangely enough, Alien Ant Farm's cover of Smooth Criminal made the list, but Michael Jackson's version didn't. But despite this, the song's popularity would persist and their second album would go platinum, selling over 1 million copies. However, the success of Smooth Criminal proved to be a double-edged sword, with Corso telling the Sacramento Bee, "Don't pass us off as a Michael Jackson cover band. Look into our history and listen to our music." The band even started to detest the song's success, and for a short period of time, they didn't even play it during their live shows. Alien Ant Farm also tried to shake off the Michael Jackson connection by re-releasing their first single Movies and shooting a new video for it that paid homage to classic flicks like Ghostbusters, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and The Karate Kid. It was during the summer of 2001 the band headlined the Vans Warped Tour, but they didn't see a lot of musical similarities between themselves and the other groups on the tour. Corso would tell the Daily News Journal, "We're like a hard rock band and the rest of them aren't. Most of the bands on the tour are punk, so we're kind of the odd man out." Fast forward to 2002 and the band would headline the traveling Snowcore tour at the time. It was the same year, while on tour in Europe, tragedy would strike the band. Alien Ant Farm would be involved in a fatal tour bus crash when their vehicle slammed into a parked truck on the side of the road. It was thought that their bus driver was distracted when he slammed into the parked truck that had pulled off the highway. Their bus was traveling at 70 miles per hour, and their tour bus driver would be killed in the accident. Alien Ant Farm singer would suffer a broken neck, and the rest of the members and their crew suffered minor injuries in comparison, mostly broken bones, bruises, and sprains. The group's bassist Ty Zamora was actually on the phone with his girlfriend when the crash happened, and she heard the whole thing. A friend of the band on the bus had their face go through a TV set, resulting in significant head trauma. Mitchell would have to undergo surgery where metal pins were inserted into his skull, and it was during his months of recovery he'd have to don a metal halo brace. his bandmates were soon left to wonder if Alien Ant Farm was done. Their label and management, meanwhile, weren't much help or very understanding about the whole thing. DreamWorks and their manager continually asked the members about their next album and when it would be done. Despite losing 40% of the range of movement in his neck, Mitchell would get back on stage, and it would be about a year since the date of the accident. In May of 2003, the band finished their third record titled Truant, which would be produced by the DeLeo brothers of Stone Temple Pilots. Fun fact you guys may not know is that working next door to Alien Ant Farm at the time was Velvet Revolver, who was recording their debut record Contraband. Velvet Revolver would reveal to Howard Stern that Scott Weiland and the DeLeo brothers ended on a sour note a few years prior, but it seemed like they had cleared the air at the time. Then in the summer of 2003, Alien Ant Farm guitarist Terry Corso quit due to irreconcilable differences, and he would temporarily join Powerman 5000. Truant would show off the band's versatility and a new range of sounds and lyrical themes. It covers skeptical better halves with tracks like Quiet, and the serious topic of drug abuse with the song Sarah Lynn. Sarah Lynn was not inspired by an acquaintance of the band, but rather a documentary that Mitchell had seen about a family struggling with a daughter who was addicted to drugs. Their third record would chart at number 42, Underperforming. For the video for the single These Days, the band would crash the 2003 BET Awards as they would film their video on a Hollywood rooftop directly across from the Kodak Theater where the awards ceremony was taking place. The band made it through about 3 performances of the song before the cops finally showed up. Their rooftop performance drew comparisons to when the Beatles did their rooftop concert in 1969 and when U2 did the shoot for Where the Streets Have No Name atop a liquor store in 1987. Mitchell would tell the Quad City Times, "This one was a little more rude. I think the Beatles and U2 did it out of a love of respect. Ours was out of a drunken debauchery and trying to be jerks, I guess." The band's original vision for the video was to crash some cheesy locations and scare customers, but the director told them to think bigger. Unbeknownst to the band in 2003 was that their label DreamWorks was going through a lot of business turmoil. Looking back, the band wished they would have waited to release their third album until things simmered down a bit. Fast forward to 2004, and their record label's problems finally came to light. Universal Music bought DreamWorks, and the band got moved to Geffen Records. The band were first given the green light to proceed with recording their fourth record, but fast forward to 2006, and the band's record Up in the Attic was complete, but it got shelved, with bassist Ty Zamora leaving the band after he decided to go to college. Geffen had already spent a ton of money making the record, but they weren't releasing it. The reason, you might ask? Hip-hop was all the rage at the time, and rock was kind of an afterthought. Mitchell would tell an interviewer, "It was frustrating because I wanted the record to be out. That's the one thing I was discouraged with, that a label can spend upwards of a few $100,000 and then not want to put it out." Upset with their label, the band would end up selling copies of their fourth record to fans, which they titled Third Draft at their live shows. Then in the spring of 2006, Universal changed their position and released the record. It would chart in the upper echelons of the Billboard 200, peaking at number 114. Another commercial disappointment. Alien Ant Farm soon lost the recording contract. They broke up for a short period of time before reconvening in 2008 to start writing new music. Corso and Zamora would rejoin the group during this period, and the band's classic lineup was finally back together. The band's latest and subsequent album would be released in 2015 with Always and Forever. Almost 10 years had passed since the band's last album, and to help get the album out to fans, the band went through Pledge Music to get funding for its production. Since 2015, Alien Ant Farm has been pretty active on the touring circuit, and in 2020 they released another cover, the Wham song Everything She Wants. In 2021 they collaborated with Insane Clown Posse on the track Afraid of Life. In 2022, frontman Dryden Mitchell would land himself in some hot water when he was charged with battery after an incident at a Fort Lauderdale show. It was alleged that the frontman grabbed a hand of a male audience member and forced it to touch his crotch. The band's cover of Smooth Criminal would go viral on TikTok in 2022 when someone posted a clip of the song with the caption, "Back When Life Was Great." The group's most recent record is scheduled to come out this April and is titled Mantras. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, if you have suggestions for future topics, let me know using the link in the description box below, and we'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories.